Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Janice Martin, and I am she, her. My service here to First Unitarian Church has been in adult religious education and small group ministry. Welcome to First Unitarian Church, where our mission is to explore the eternal, nurture community, and pursue the common good. We welcome you in our brokenness, and in your wholeness, no matter who you have been, who you are, or who you are becoming. We greet you today with love. I'd like to extend a special welcome to everyone who is watching us on YouTube this morning. During the prelude, please introduce yourself in the comments and let us know where you're joining us from. If you're in OKC, what neighborhood are you in? Or if you're elsewhere, what city are you in? And now the prelude prepares us for worship.
We have a little bit of a surprise today. Sadly, our accompanist, Steve Elkins, is out sick today, so we're going to play. Our music director is also away this weekend, so I'm able to I'm going to play with this choir and mess around with you guys. We've done this once before, but it's been a while. I'm going to ask, the balcony, and let's have maybe the last 5 rows on that side, right? Here's your part. You are going to be chanting Om Mani Padme Hum. It's written in your order of service. So you have a Buddhist chant from the Buddhist tradition, Om Mani Padme Hum. The jewel is in the lotus, the sound of silence, all right? So here's the tune. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Got it? How are you feeling about that? Balcony, back row, guys? Good? Okay. Let's have this next section here. Do the next part. You are going to be singing this line that comes from Muslim tradition, which is translated, "There is no God but God." And it goes, La, Allah, Ha, Il, Allahu, La, ilaha, Il, Allahu, La, ilaha, Il, Allahu, La, ilaha, Il, Allahu. Good. All right, you got that? These guys, this whole side, you're going to be singing Shalom Shanti. Shalom from Jewish tradition, meaning peace. Shanti from Hinduism, meaning peace. Right? Yours is a little bit high. It goes, let's see if I can do it with my voice. Shalom Shanti. Shalom Shanti. Shalom Shanti. You got it? All right. You guys are singing Gloria in Excelsis Deo. All right? That's the choir part. So you guys, Gloria in Excelsis Deo. In excelsis Deo. And you're just going to do that. All right. You're going to have to watch. We're going to start with the Om Mani Padme Hum, people. Just keep going and keep going until I signal to you. You'll see me pointing at you going like this. That means wrapping it up. All right? So here we go. You ready? You ready to try this? This is a rehearsal. We're going to do it again. We're going to do it again later in the service, so don't worry if it's not prayer. This is the rehearsal. All right. Here we go. Ready? Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om. Keep it going. La ilaha illahu la ilaha illallahu la ilaha illallahu la ilaha il. Ready? Shalom Shanti. Shalom Shanti. Shalom Shanti. Shalom Shanti. All right. Oh, you all stopped at the same time. It's okay. As I said, this was rehearsal. We're going to do it just perfect the next time around. But that was still beautiful. It was beautiful. Thank you all. My name is Reverend Diana Davies, and my pronouns are, we have not yet lit our chalice. You know, I knew it was going to be a problem when we got the note from Frank that he was not going to be able to have coffee and donuts this morning. It was just going to be chaos from there on. Becky Talent is lighting our chalice this morning in honor of her birthday. And I also want to say happy birthday to Diane Broyles, who isn't able to be with us today, and Betty Hepler-Scott. It's her birthday as well, all of these birthdays on the same day. We light the chalice as a symbol of our sacred time together. The burning chalice represents the light of reason and science, the warmth of loving community, the cleansing heat of justice, and the flame of hope. And now it is time for me to introduce myself as Reverend Diana Davies. My pronouns are she, her, hers. And today I am wearing my blue clergy robe and my Unitarian Universalist chalice stole. As Unitarian Universalists, we celebrate science and the human gifts of reason and rational thinking. And yet there is another aspect of spiritual seeking that should never be forgotten: the power of transcending mystery and wonder. This mystical experience, exceeding rational thought, is one of the most important sources of our faith. And as a reminder of this, I'm going to invite you to take out the gray hymnal, the hardback one, and I'm going to ask you to go way back in the back. So if you see those high numbers back there in the back, you'll see the back of the hymnal is not hymns, but it's actually readings. So if you scan to reading number 531, so it's way back in the back, number 531. The readings in our hymnal are organized according to source, right? So the sources of our faith. And what's interesting to note is the first source listed is, in fact, transcending mystery and wonder. This particular reading is by Ralph Waldo Emerson. And Ralph Waldo Emerson, as I'll talk more about in a little bit, was a Unitarian minister who is also the leader of transcendentalism. This is the Oversoul. And I'm going to ask you to look at those last two sentences. So number 531, the Oversoul. We're just going to look at those last two sentences. So I'm going to read the part of the script that's in the upright font, and I will ask you to join in on the part in italics. Within us is the soul of the whole, the wise silence, the universal beauty, to which every part and particle is equally related, the eternal one. And please join me. When it breaks through our intellect, it is genius. When it breathes through our will, it is virtue. When it flows through our affections, it is love. Please rise in body or in spirit. We are going to sing a round. Gathered here, it's number 389, and members of our choir are going to lead us. I believe we're first going to hear the tune all the way through, performed by Wendy on the flute. Then we all will sing it together one time, and then we're going to break up into 4 groups. Let's see. Let's see, who's our number one? Becky's our first leader. Becky, do you want to go through, I guess like through LaDonna and Jean, okay? So up this first part, okay? And then who is our second? Maureen. Maureen, let's do the second half back there. And then who's doing third? Barb. Barb, can you do that back half back there? And then this will be up in the front, will be our fourth, right? And balcony, why don't you go ahead with this group in the back with 3, okay? So you ready? You got it? We are really keeping you on your toes today. We're going to hear the melody one time. We'll sing it all through together. Then we're going to break up in the rounds. And I believe we're going to do the rounds 3 times through.
Gathered here in the mystery of the hour.
So we started our service today with a text by Ralph Waldo Emerson. As I mentioned, he was a Unitarian Universalist minister who became the leader of the Transcendentalist movement. So Transcendentalists took basic ideas of Unitarianism, like the idea that people and nature are basically good, inherently good, but they rejected what they saw as the cold and boring parts, like the emphasis on reason and rational thinking. Transcendentalists, like Ralph Waldo Emerson, wanted to focus on personal experience, including experience that could not be explained in a rational way. They wanted to transcend or go beyond cold logic and experience and experience a kind of union with God or with the divine. And one way they tried to do this was through spiritual practice. Now, in the same way that if you want to play the violin, you need to practice, the Transcendentalists thought that through practice, you could develop your spirit. And they had a few different ways of doing this. One spiritual practice was just walking in nature and really paying attention to it. And they would also meditate and read scripture from other faith traditions. They would write in their journals. Sometimes they would read each other's journals. And some of the Transcendentalists would make art or play music. Transcendentalism faded away as a movement, but a lot of modern day Unitarian Universalists still have a spiritual practice. One popular one that I know a lot of you do is yoga. So from the outside, yoga can look like you're just stretching or doing some exercise, but it can be a way of paying deep attention to the connections between body, mind, spirit, and something that we might call energy. So before we sing the children and youth off to their classes, I'd like to take just a moment to explore, don't worry, very simple yoga as a spiritual practice. So I invite you to settle into your seats. Get comfortable. Maybe let the eyes softly close or be softly focused on the ground in front of you. As we take a breath in, let's see if you can pull the shoulders up toward your ears. So breathing in, pull them up. And then on the exhale, let the shoulders come down. Notice how that feels, that connection between the body and the breath. Let's do that again. Taking a deep breath in, let's bring the shoulders up. And on the exhale, let them down. If it's available to you, let's take the hands and bring them together. And you might rub the hands together to build a little bit of heat. And then once you feel there's some energy there, start to slowly peel them apart. Slowly, slowly. And as you do that, notice the point at which you don't feel the energy between your hands any longer. Where does that stop? Let's try that once more. Rub them together. And then slowly noticing, you feel that energy between them. Notice at what point the connection stops. One last time, let's rub the hands together. This time, let's cross our arms and put our hands on our shoulders. Take a deep breath in. And on the exhale, let's let the arms drop out to the side, shoulders down, hands out. One more time, taking a deep breath in. Let's give ourselves a big hug. Feel the energy and the love in that hug. And on the exhale, let the arms down, let it go. Very simple spiritual practice to connect mind, body, spirit, energy. Please join me now in singing the children and youth out to their classes.
I am a Buddhist, Hindu, Unitarian Universalist. I grew up here in Oklahoma City and had a mystic for a mother. When I was in high school at Northwest Classen on a summer day, my mother became suddenly ill, and I sat with her for a few hours before she passed away. In those hours, she began to hear inner music and asked me repeatedly to sing with her. Sing, Jenny, sing. Can you hear them singing? She was experiencing a light, an inner vision of her Celtic relatives standing on a shore, singing a song they had sung many times at the foot of the bed where someone lay dying. A few weeks later, she was between two worlds and absolutely radiant. A few weeks later, in my world religions class, our teacher, a Southern Baptist minister named the Reverend Wayne Pankey, said to us, I can teach you anything about the Bible, but I don't know, does anybody here know anything about this Buddhism? I raised my hand and ended up writing a paper he told me later that he taught from for the rest of his career. I fell in love with Buddhism. After another serious loss, profound loss, I bumped into a friend's ex-husband at a grocery store who began to tell me his profoundly joyful Buddhist chanting meditation practice. I was captivated and stayed with that powerful practice for the next 15 years, falling in love with it and a certain tall, charming fellow I'd met there who laughed at my jokes. 47 years later, he's sitting in the back of the sanctuary. After another great loss, I happened to attend a meditation intensive at an acquaintance's house, discovering a Hindu philosophy called Siddha Yoga meditation, which I practice to this day. I've learned that there is an inner light called prakasha, the light of consciousness, the universal ground of all reality, from which we can never be separated. Prakasha is the soul. It allows me to be aware of what I am observing. It is a place of abiding in vast spaciousness within, free of attachment, emotions, aversions, judgments, or the focus on others and their emotions and reactions. This is the inner witness of my life, observing my actions, words, and thoughts, and the space between thoughts. It is a place to abide for me within my being, rather than me constantly projecting my consciousness outside to the world, reactive world. In Prakasha, I've found we are all shimmering beings made of the same brilliant gold particles of light that are visible with steady spiritual practices of meditation. It is a place where everyone deserves the highest love without condition. I have learned that at the moment of my death, there is a brilliant spark of light, the holographic life review, where the predominant tone and resonance of my lifetime shines forth. This flash of light for me is coming, and I don't know when. A person that is full of anger, resentment, or guilt will match frequencies with a realm of that vibration for their next incarnation, while a person like me or someone else of great love, kindness, forgiveness, and joy will proceed to a realm that matches that radiant light of existence as I matched here on planet Earth. From joy to joy. The beauty of my life has been the opportunities to change my karmas of depression and perceived defeat, especially with the aid of everyday enlightened teachers of all kinds, including many people here. It seems like after times of great loss, when my mind is more open, I've been willing to try new things. Having the aid of master teachers and, again, teachers here, leaders in this church and other people who have walked the path before me has been a catalyst of growth beyond the limitations I've placed on myself. I've experienced unexpected losses, we all do, and I have found that beyond the grief and suffering, there are endless possibilities for wonder.
Good morning. My name is Marshall Gimple. I'm a member of the Board of Trustees and the immediate past president of the congregation. My pronouns are he, him, and his. Every Sunday, we take an offering. Since 2002, all the cash and designated checks from that offering have gone directly to external nonprofit organizations doing good work, our Change for Change partners. For the month of November, our Change for Change partner is Voice OKC. Voice, which stands for Voices Organized in Civic Engagement, is a coalition of dues-paying congregations, nonprofits, worker associations, and school groups who have come together out of a deep sense of mission and a concern about the pressures that families face in the Oklahoma City metropolitan area. Together, these organizations, which include First Unitarian, a proud member of Voice, commit to build relationships of trust across racial, denominational, economic, and geographical boundaries, develop the skills and capacity of their leaders, create a vehicle for ordinary families to have a powerful voice in the community decisions that affect their lives, and take action on concrete issues to transform our community. For those of you in the sanctuary with us today, in just a moment we'll be passing the offering plate. We know that many of you prefer to mail in a check or to make your donations to Change for Change online. You can always make your gift by mailing a check to First Unitarian. Just write Change for Change in the memo line, or make an online payment through our website, oneuc.org. Now, in addition to asking you for your treasure, your dollars, the Voice team, of which I'm a member for First Unitarian, is going to ask you for a gift of time as well. On December the 3rd, 3 weeks from today, Voice will be hosting a public forum on the issue of the Thunder NBA basketball arena, the new arena. Voice itself takes no position on this matter, but offers up this public forum as a public service, as a way of having us, who will have to vote for this proposal on the 12th of December, take the opportunity to get more information about it, to clarify questions and issues, and to be good informed citizens. So we ask everyone who can to please save that date, take the time to attend that forum, tell your friends and family about it, and we're hoping to get about 100 people at a minimum from the First Unitarian community to go to that event. It's from 3 to 4:30 in the afternoon, and it will be held at Greater Mount Olive Baptist Church, which is at 1020 Northeast 42nd Street. It's about a 10-12 minute drive from here. Thank you. And now our offertory.
As the offering plate is passed, I invite you to join me in singing hymn 402 in your hymnal. You can go ahead. Go ahead. It's a very simple tune, and we're going to have a little bit of accompaniment here. If you have a low voice, I invite you to do this part. Bum, 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 bum. Got it? Keep it going. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. One more time. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, and from this we live. Nice. Before our prayer or meditation, I would like to take this opportunity on the Veterans Day weekend to honor the many veterans in our congregation. If you are a veteran, would you please rise or raise your hand high to be recognized? Thank you. Please join me in a spirit of prayer or meditation. Spirit of life, source of love, on this Veterans Day weekend, we do remember the many people who have sacrificed in so many ways. Those who have given the greatest sacrifice, their very lives, for their country. Those who have been injured and have lived with physical pain. Those who have lived with emotional and psychological trauma. We think of those who have been apart from their families for holidays, for children growing up. Our hearts are with those who are in service at this very moment. We think of our dear Bill Dykes, who's being deployed and will be away from his family. Our hearts today are also with those in our congregation and our larger community who are struggling with illness. And we hold in our hearts their beloved family members who care for them, who do such important, hard work. May they know strength. May they know that they are held in love. And for our wider world, and those places of violence, of war, of horrible injury and loss. We send our love to those places. We pray for the well-being of all beings. May all know peace. May all know safety. May all know love. And in gratitude, finally, we lift up our thanks for the many good things in this world. The sunshine, the beautiful day, the family and friends and neighbors and those who care for us and give us a smile and make our days bright. For these, we say thank you. And now I invite you in a moment of silence to lift up upon your hearts all those things you carry today. Shanti, shalom, peace. Amen. Our choir anthem is Nada te turbe. The words are by Santa Teresa de Jesus, Teresa of Avila.
Those that seek God shall never go wanting. Nothing can trouble, nothing can frighten. God alone fills us.
Nada
For the past several years, as part of our spring fundraiser, I have often auctioned off a pick-your-own sermon topic, and this time Tom Perriam was the winner. And as we were talking about this sermon, Tom shared with me that while on a retreat, he'd encountered an image, an idea that came from 16th century Catholic saint, Saint Teresa of Avila. And that image had resonated with him. It was the image of a fountain that flowed with water from an internal source, like an underground spring. Now, Saint Teresa had used this image as a metaphor for a kind of mystical experience that comes not through mental effort or physical discipline, but from someplace much deeper, from the pure grace of God. In her book, The Interior Castle, Teresa contrasts this kind of effortless transcendence to the kind that comes through spiritual practice. This latter type of experience, she writes, is like a basin into which water flows through pipes or channels. In both cases, water flows. But in the second case, that only happens because someone has made the effort of connecting all the pipes and making the water move through them. And that's what Tom asked me to talk about today. It's the challenge that faces anyone who's ever tried spiritual practices like prayer or meditation or yoga or journaling. You sit and you focus on the breath, or you write, or you do your asanas, and most of the time, not much happens. But every now and then, you might get this little glimmer of what kind of feels maybe a little sort of bit kind of like enlightenment. But just as quickly as it comes, it goes away. And you're back with your monkey brain and wondering if it was all worth the effort. What we want, what we're longing for is peace, wholeness, a sense of deep connection. And every now and then, life actually offers these moments to us. Most of us have had this kind of experience at least once in our lives, at the birth of a child, or the passing of a loved one, or the sight of a waterfall. A moment of transcendence that comes out of the blue, a moment of bliss where everything just fits, everything suddenly makes sense. And then it's gone. And so the question arises, is there a way to nurture such moments in ourselves? Is there a way to fill our spirits with wholeness and peace, like how a basin is filled with water through mechanical processes, through effort? Well, St. Teresa suggests that through spiritual practice, and she would have said specifically through prayer, we can achieve that mystical leap to a state of oneness with that which is the infinite. Call it God, love, or life itself. And in describing how this works, Teresa repeatedly uses water imagery. Water, for her, represents enlightenment, oneness, peace. It makes sense that water would be so important to her, given that she lived in a semi-arid place where water was a precious resource. It also makes sense, given that she lived in Spain at a time when the Moors had been recently expelled, and the cities and villages were dominated by Moorish architecture with its exquisite fountains and canals. If you've ever seen pictures of the Alhambra, you know what I'm talking about. It's worth saying a bit more about who this Teresa of Avila was. She was born in Spain in 1515 during the time of the Spanish Inquisition. Her grandfather was Jewish, and he had been forced to convert to Christianity. The family was well off financially, but there was always the threat that their heritage could be used against them. As a child, Teresa was passionate and extroverted, and her exuberance was a concern to her father, who placed her in a convent when she was in her early teens as a way of settling her down. But Teresa was vivacious, and she had an active mind, and silence and contemplation did not come naturally for her. For a long time, she struggled, and she experienced severe health problems. And at one point, she actually fell into a coma so deep that everyone thought she was dead. They'd actually put the wax on her eyes, and they were preparing to bury her when she came back. Now, after this, Teresa committed herself to the practice of quiet prayer and disciplined spiritual practice. Years went by with very little to show for her commitment, but one day in her late 30s, Teresa was walking down a hallway in the convent, and she noticed a statue leaning against the wall. And it was one of those really graphic statues of Christ scourged and suffering and wearing the crown of thorns. And as Teresa picked it up to move it somewhere else, she happened to look in its eyes. And in that moment, she experienced something she called union, a kind of transcendence. And this launched a period in which Teresa began having visions and hearing voices. And instead of praying out loud, as she had been taught to do, she had silent, intimate conversations with Jesus, who she thought of as her beloved. And not surprisingly, all of this was a concern to the Catholic priests. They questioned her, and they impelled her to write about her experience to determine if they were in fact gifts from God, symptoms of mental illness, or the delusions of the devil. Now, had the church determined that Teresa's visions were in fact satanic, she would have been most likely tortured and burned at the stake. But the church ended up blessing her. Teresa would go on to found convents all over Spain. She would be canonized, recognized as the patron saint of Spain, and declared a doctor of the church. Now, that Doctor of the Church title is bestowed by the Catholic Church on saints who have made a significant contribution to theology through their study and their research. It was Teresa's writings on the spiritual practice of prayer that really earned her this distinction, especially a passage in her autobiography that's often referred to as the 4 waters of prayer. So here we are again, back with water. In her book, The Interior Castle, Teresa compared the experience of effortless transcendence to a fountain that bubbles up from a spring. But in her autobiography, she uses a different illustration for this kind of experience. She compares it to rain that no person can control, that falls on us and nurtures us through no effort on our own part. But just because we can't control the rain doesn't mean that we can't fill our basin with water in another way. Teresa invites her readers to imagine a garden in a dry land. Think the Spanish High Plateau or Oklahoma in July. Except that in Teresa's garden, we don't have to worry about squash bugs and squirrels and weeds. Her garden has already been pre-weeded and pre-seeded, and apparently there are a lot of beneficial insects. The only thing that's missing is water. So what does the beginning gardener do? Go to the well, fill the bucket, dump the bucket on the plants, go back, get more water, repeat endlessly. Before you know it, you're sweating and exhausted and spilling most of the water out of the buckets on the way and ready to give up. Teresa compares this situation to that of someone who is just getting started with spiritual practice. Specifically for her, someone who's just learning how to pray. The beginner relies on tools and techniques. You get a beautiful book of prayers and a scented candle and a nice cushion. You download your meditation app on your phone. You get unlimited classes, membership at the yoga studio. And then you show up, and then it gets hard. And you start to wonder if it's all worth it. Well, Teresa leads us on to the next garden. And this one features the kind of water wheel that is turned with a crank. And as the wheel turns, water is picked up in buckets and dumped into a trough where it flows out onto the thirsty plants. And this way of watering still involves effort, but it isn't nearly as exhausting. And as long as you keep turning the wheel, the water flows. Teresa was using this metaphor for quiet prayer, in which human effort begins to make space for something deeper, something greater. And this is the moment in our spiritual journey where, if we can get out of our own way, we can experience moments of insight and grace. Now, to understand Teresa's third garden metaphor, her third water of prayer, you need to know a little something about the unique irrigation system that the Moors engineered hundreds and hundreds of years ago, the acequia. An acequia is a system of gravity-fed irrigation ditches that direct snowmelt down the sides of mountains through underground channels and out to dry fields. No pumps are required. To irrigate your field, you just lift a gate and you let the water flow through. Acequias were used by farmers back in Teresa's day, and they still are used in southern Spain as well as in the lands that were Spanish colonies, including right next door in New Mexico. Teresa uses an acequia as an illustration for a third type of spiritual experience, which builds upon the previous stages. Grace now flows like water through a channel, and we need only lift the gate of our ego to access it. Effort has been largely replaced by surrender. Teresa writes, quote, "The soul's humility is now greater and more profound than it was before. It clearly sees that it has done absolutely nothing except consent to the Lord's granting it graces and embraces them with its will." Unquote. Teresa's point, ultimately, is this: there are multiple ways to fill your basin with water. You can hope for rain, or you can find ways to bring water to you through effort, through the discipline of spiritual practice, which eventually gives way to moments of grace and spiritual surrender. Now, Teresa was a Catholic, and she wrote specifically about the practice of prayer. But her lessons have inspired many people of different faiths, different traditions, pursuing many different kinds of spiritual practice. And yet, she seems to be largely ignored by Unitarian Universalists. For fun, Google Unitarian and St. Teresa, and you get this sermon. And I think that's a shame, because there's something about Teresa's vision of spiritual practice, her waters of prayer, that fit perfectly with our values, and that many other faith traditions seem to have overlooked. And that is the communal nature of grace. Those steps that Teresa uses as illustrations in the process of spiritual practice, from carrying water in buckets to pumping it with a water wheel to having it flow through an acequia, They don't just involve increasing levels of ease. They depend on increasing involvement of people. You can carry your own bucket. It's unlikely that you can build your own water wheel. It is impossible for you to make your own acequia. You cannot have an acequia outside of community. It's much more complicated than just opening a gate to let the water flow through. All the way down the mountains, each channel, each diversion dam and headgate and flume must be constantly maintained. Each distribution channel must be kept at just the right slope. Silt and tree roots need to be removed every single year, and different kinds of trees are planted along the channels in order to maintain them. Systems of democratic governance are required to ensure that everyone has fair access to water. An acequia is a complex system that depends on much more than individual effort. It depends on community. And so it is with spiritual practice in a Unitarian Universalist context. Yes, we each seek our own truth, our own insight, and no one else can do the work of spiritual practice for us. But all of this happens within a system of mutual support and care. We do not go alone. We do not grow alone. Imagine a garden in a dry land. Rain falls on the land and green things grow through no effort on the gardener's part. It is purely a gift, purely grace. But water comes too through channels that have been built and maintained by countless others. And that too is grace. We're going to do our chant just one time. Keep the same parts you had before. We're just going to do it one time. Let's start with our Om Mani Padme people. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme. Ready? La ilaha illallahu la ilaha illallahu la ilaha illallah. Ready? Shalom, Shanti, Shalom, Shanti, Shalom, Shanti. Shanti. One more time. Shalom, Shanti. La ilaha illallahu la ilaha illallahu. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of love and community, which burns on in our hearts.
Oh, there are so many things going on around here right now. First of all, as you go through these doors down the hallway to Daniel Hall, you will find the Fiber Art Sale. There are some gorgeous works of art in there, all handmade by members of our own congregation, and the funds that are raised will go to support our music program. So please go and buy everything you see. I also want to remind you that on the 21st, Tuesday the 21st, we will be hosting the Interfaith Thanksgiving service here at First Unitarian. This is one of the great services of the year. Please put it on your calendar. Tell your friends about it. Be sure to come. And I have an announcement. For 25 years, First Unitarian has helped provide Christmas gifts for children whose parents are in drug or mental health court. These individuals participate in a rigorous 18-month program that is an alternative to prison. Please stop by the display in Daniel Hall, so as you're buying things, pause and go to the display to select a child or two to buy presents for. Gifts need to be returned to Daniel Hall by December the 10th, and cash donations are also welcome. And you'll see more about this in the newsletter, but today's the day you really want to make sure you go by and select a child for those gifts. And now I leave you with these words of St. Teresa of Avila as a blessing. Teresa speaks of God, but because we live in a world that is in such desperate need of love, I will use the word love instead. Let nothing disturb you. Let nothing frighten you. All things pass away. Love never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has love lacks nothing. Love alone suffices. Wendy, would you play us out?